Hannah Cornelius was born on February 13, 1996 in Cape Town, one of the three capitals of South Africa. She was raised in a loving, upper-class family alongside her younger brother. Her parents, Willem and Anna Cornelius, were both highly successful. Her father served as a judge, while her mother ran a flourishing law firm. Despite her privileged upbringing, Hannah was known for her selfless and compassionate nature. From a young age, she displayed a quiet and gentle demeanor, never giving her parents any trouble. Even as a child, she was deeply empathetic and always sought ways to help others. On her 16th birthday, rather than receiving presents, she insisted that the money be spent on those in need. She used the funds to buy toys and distribute them to underprivileged children in a nearby settlement, a tradition she continued on every birthday thereafter. Hannah's friends described her as a kind, cheerful, and fun-loving young woman. She had a passion for playing the piano, an instrument she mastered with remarkable skill. Though both of her parents had pursued careers in law and subtly encouraged her to do the same, Hannah was determined to forge her own path. She had a deep love for literature, philosophy, and languages, and she dreamed of studying in France after completing her education. She eventually enrolled at Stellenbosch University, one of South Africa's oldest and most prestigious institutions, located in a neighboring city. Initially, her parents were disappointed that she did not want to follow in their footsteps, but over time, they grew to admire her independence and dedication to her passions. They ultimately took pride in the woman she was becoming. However, Hannah's promising future was tragically cut short on the night of May 27, 2017. At approximately 3:23 a.m., she stopped her car near the home of her friend Cheslin Marsh, whom she had offered a ride after a night out. As they sat in the vehicle chatting, four men lurking nearby spotted them and approached. These men, 33-year-old Vernon Witbooi, 29-year-old Nashua Julius, 28-year-old Eben van Niekerk, and 27-year-old Geraldo Parsons, were armed with a knife and a screwdriver. Without warning, they surrounded the car. One of the men pressed the screwdriver against Hannah's chest while the others demanded money and valuables from both her and Cheslin. After taking everything, Nashua Julius walked away with some of the stolen belongings, while the remaining three men made a chilling decision. They would take Hannah and Cheslin with them. One of the attackers climbed into the back seat with Cheslin, while the other two forced Hannah between them in the front. They drove for several miles before stopping and forcing Cheslin into the trunk. One of the men then switched places, moving to the back seat while Hannah was moved into the front passenger seat. At around 4:30 a.m., they stopped at a gas station, where security cameras captured their movements. Vernon Witbooi entered the store and attempted to withdraw money from Cheslin's bank account, but Cheslin had deliberately provided the wrong PIN. Frustrated, the criminals continued their journey, telling Hannah they only needed her car to get home and would soon let her go. But they were lying. Instead, they first made a stop at a dealer's house to buy methamphetamine. By 5:30 a.m., they had arrived in Kraaifontein, a township on the outskirts of Cape Town. There, they pulled Cheslin out of the trunk and brutally beat him with bricks for giving them false account information. They left him unconscious, assuming he was dead. Against all odds, Cheslin survived, waking up the next day and seeking help. He suffered severe injuries, including permanent hearing loss in one ear. Meanwhile, Hannah remained in the hands of the ruthless criminals, who drove her to a secluded spot near a paintball field. There, they took turns raping her for over an hour. According to their later confessions, Hannah was visibly shaken and begged for her life. At around 7:40 a.m., they forced her back into the vehicle and drove about 12 miles to a deserted country road near a vineyard and a stream. Once there, they dragged Hannah out of the car. One of them stabbed her in the neck, delivering a fatal wound. But they weren't finished. They then picked up a 35-kilogram stone and used it to crush her skull. Leaving her lifeless body behind, the criminals callously drove away, undeterred by their heinous actions. Rather than hiding, they continued their rampage. They soon spotted a woman walking alone to work, chased her down, and stole her cell phone. By 1 p.m., they were still in possession of Hannah's stolen car and had already attacked multiple victims. One of these was another woman whom they kidnapped and took to a gas station in Brackenfell. Security footage showed Vernon Witbooi withdrawing money from her account while she sat helplessly in the back seat with the other two criminals. After emptying her bank account, they drove her to the same area where they had raped Hannah and released her. Their spree continued as they targeted yet another woman in a different town, stealing from her as well. At this point, Eben van Niekerk decided to part ways with the group and asked to be dropped off. Unbeknownst to the criminals, police were already closing in on them. Cheslin, who had miraculously survived, had alerted the authorities as soon as he regained consciousness. By 2:10 p.m., nearly 11 hours after the brutal attacks on Hannah and Cheslin, undercover officers spotted the two remaining criminals, Geraldo Parsons and Vernon Whitboy, still driving Hannah's stolen car. A high-speed chase ensued, with police cars joining the pursuit. Eventually, the criminals abandoned the vehicle and attempted to flee on foot, but they were swiftly apprehended. Hours later, the police also arrested Eben van Niekerk, and the following day, Nashua Julius was taken into custody. Later that same day, authorities discovered Hannah's body after two workers passing through the area stumbled upon the gruesome scene. The police immediately launched an investigation and transported her remains for an autopsy. The autopsy revealed the horrific extent of her suffering. She had endured severe physical trauma, extensive bruising, and catastrophic injuries to her genitals. Her cause of death was determined to be a fatal stab wound to the neck, which severed a vital artery. Additionally, her skull had been crushed by two devastating blows from the large stone. The crime sent shockwaves throughout South Africa. Friends and loved ones were left in disbelief, struggling to comprehend the brutality of what had happened. Students at Stellenbosch University staged protests and marches, demanding better security and justice for Hannah. In the aftermath, Hannah's parents established a foundation in her name, dedicated to providing aid and support to impoverished communities. Anna Cornelius, devastated by the loss of her daughter, left her successful law firm to focus entirely on the foundation. However, grief took a heavy toll on her health. In March 2018, she went for her routine morning swim, but never returned. Her body was later found washed up on a beach. While some believe she had taken her own life, her husband, Willem, insisted that she had simply been too weak to fight against the rough sea that day. Willem later expressed how the tragedy had shattered their family. He revealed that his youngest son, who has autism, still asks when Hannah will return, unable to grasp the permanence of loss. In his own words, he and his son are no longer a family, just survivors living in the ruins of what once was. In November 2018, the four perpetrators stood trial. Throughout the proceedings, they showed no remorse, laughing, swearing, and making obscene gestures. It was clear to everyone in the courtroom that they had no regard for the suffering they had caused. That same month, the verdict was delivered. Vernon Whitboy, Eben van Niekerk, and Geraldo Parsons were found guilty on all 10 charges, including robbery, kidnapping, sexual assault, and murder. Each received 2 life sentences. Nashua Julius, who had been involved in the robbery but left before the kidnappings, was sentenced to 22 years in prison. Though justice was served, many felt that no punishment could ever truly account for the depth of Hannah's suffering. Her father, once a judge committed to impartiality, resigned from his profession, stating that he could never be objective again after what had happened to his daughter. This was the heartbreaking case of Hannah Cornelius. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.